A Season of Graves. The reign of Tiernan mac Anguis, Raig of Tirneach, seemed primed to enter into a period of greater stability in the height of year 801 TR. It was a welcome relief for the people of Tirneach, who had suffered much during the time without a Raig, and the accompanying turmoil that had marked the season of uncertainty. The focus of the Galoglig across the realms remained on dealing with the lingering maladies of the uncertainty. The welcome news of the slaying of the Smiling Gwicht in Bruid was accompanied by a slowing of the relentless advance north of the Great Forest, with some rumours spreading that it was even receding south, and traders were starting to travel once more between the settlements. For Cuacht na Raig, there was no rest yet, with still more demand for martial prowess. Their Thane Ulgar Corcra decided the band would travel to Driad, answering a call for aid from the Arcane College in Crag Uskien. Unlike traditional contracts accepted by Galoglig, the invitation received by Cuacht na Raig was an open one from many riders to assist in clearing out some sealed tunnels around the capital of Driad to expand the campus of the Arcane College. Many members of the band were no stranger to the threats that surrounded the city of Crag Uskien, counting both survivors of the siege by the Blazing Host in Ardbaloch and the subsequent flooding of Crag Uskien amongst their number. For some, a mission to Crag Uskien would be a homecoming, but for others, it was a return to some of the darkest days they had experienced in living memory. Lacking a single employer, Thane Ulgarg was approached to commit his band to help secure the interests of 3 of the local riders, who were hoping to stake a claim to the newly reclaimed lands about Crag Uskien. Servan, rider of Gwaedouche, Cuivine Thunderbrand, rider of Maildov, and Saoirse Drakebane, rider of Bronglik, each made an offer to the band. Each of the riders promised the band support in the form of both completed items and materials that the band themselves could devote to their own crafting endeavours. Together they would form a veritable treasure trove of materials and items in the event they could secure the majority of the new lands for any one of the riders, but still a lesser reward if they could be regarded as at least a significant rider in the newly reclaimed land. In addition to the promise of payment for assisting in claiming land for the riders, there were a number of outstanding bounties upon known threats in the region, each representing a clear and present danger to not just the expansion of the Arcane College and the interests of the riders, but the city of Crag Uskien as a whole. 6 targets were presented to the band, with high prices placed on each. The Golden Caerthanig, a cunning Gwicht who had been part of the host that attacked Crag Uskien and was thought to be in the area, harassing mining teams and seeking to conduct fell rituals. Sive Seaslayer, a follower of the so-called Breaker heresy, who was believed to be responsible for the ambush and killing of one of the Tirneach of Driad, who are known as C, who was thought to be marshalling troops as part of a plot to kill one with an exceptional belief in the Shaper. The Slua King, a rumoured creature of great size which was believed to be made up of the broken remains of a number of reanimated Gwicht corpses. Bawn, an albino-faced Cabru Kailach, a feline creature of a breed prone to stealing belongings from settled areas, both in Driad and beyond, thought to be behind coordinated theft of artifacts from the Arcane College. The Rotmother, believed to be a particularly sizable and potent form of ambulatory fungus that was thought to be settled near Crag Uskien. And the Physic, a linebreaker Vartuk rumoured to be conducting unthinkable experiments among weeping, suspected to be engaging in grave-robbing activities and thought to be the same linebreaker Vartuk who had abducted the weeping Fahak Olev. Each of the targets bore a bounty of 200 pingin, decided to be shared amongst all of the members of the band who took part in the mission, rather than solely to those responsible for bringing them down. Cuacht na Raig made camp on the outskirts of Crag Uskien, above ground, but close to many entrances to the subterranean tunnels that were to be the expanded campus of the Arcane College. Some of these tunnels were naturally formed, while others were intended to be reclaimed from those which were sealed out of necessity during the seasons of uncertainty, and more still were abandoned after the loss of their owners during those unpleasant times. During their first major foray into the dark tunnels beneath their camp, The Galoglik were tasked with reclaiming a mine that had been overrun by Slua and Tirneach, who were the remnants of the blazing host. Mere minutes into delving into the depths of the tunnels, there was an earth-shaking rumbling of a large creature passing through an adjacent passage, which caused the roof to cave in. The group narrowly avoiding any casualties, but splitting the group in two. In the dark and winding tunnels, they were forced to fight their way towards an exit through swarming Slua forces and the Tirneach that were marshalling them. Along the way, they regrouped, and eventually, the path to the surface brought them through a Tirneach stronghold, and they discovered and slew the Golden General of the Tirneach forces, who had been seeking to conduct a ritual, likely seeking to obtain some power to cause havoc amongst the Shaper's faithful. Meanwhile, the other members of Cuach na Raig were not lying idle, taking on a number of tasks to improve the lot of those in the vicinity, delving in to repair an ancient water supply system that predated the coming of the Raig to Tirneach. As the night began to settle in about camp, and the Galoglig were preparing for a good rest during their first night in Druid, there came a rumble from beneath the camp, before a horde of Slua emerged from beneath them, assailing the camp from many angles. Though the undead seemed without number, and seemed to have the lingering foul magics of the Tirneach that they once were, Cuach na Raig stood strong until the magic animating them faded, and peace returned to the night once more. The second day of the mission to Crag Uskian began with even more expeditions into the tunnels bordering on the campsite. Amidst the other tasks that Cuach na Raig undertook during the morning on that second day, they were informed that there had been a sighting of a massive creature thought to be the rumoured Slua King. A group of Galoglik descended into a darkened cavern, scrambling down through a tight and uncharted passage. Deep below the passages that led to the surface, they heard the scratching, scraping sounds of a large creature advancing towards them, a writhing mass of flesh and flailing arms, the Slua King. It was composed of a tightly packed mass of undead Gwicht, seeming to bear a collective consciousness far beyond that of any of its constituent parts. Despite the best efforts of the Galoglik, they were unable to harm the Slua King in any appreciable fashion and scrambled back to the surface, only barely avoiding having any member of their company subsumed into the mass of bodies, one having to be pulled free from within the writhing flesh. Despite the setback of the morning, the afternoon saw greater success for the band, in both exploring the environs they found themselves in, and in cashing in on the bounties that were available. They were alerted to a discovered passage that was believed to lead to the tomb of the Mad King, the burial place of one of the rulers of the realm of Druid, as it existed before the coming of the Raig to Tirneach. The route was barred by strong undead guardians and lined with traps, and the eventual entrance was barred by a magical lock that would have strained the intellect of even the erudite scholars of the Arcane College. They also received a tip that the Sea Slayer and a group of breaker heretics were passing through a passage nearby, and the band was given a short period to ambush them before they passed beyond their reach. In a hurried pursuit, Cuach na Raig ran down the breakers as they sought to flee, killing them to the last and ensuring that none could escape. Not all the jobs that the band were engaged for were equally glorious, as they were also tasked with breaking a strike upon a nearby mine. Although it eventually became clear that the strike arose because of breaker heretics amidst the workers, there were rumours of discord amongst the members of the band in whether to do the job that they were contracted to undertake. The evening held more dangers and glory for the members of the band. An expedition was sponsored by an academic from the Arcane College, who sought to better understand the varied fungus that were located in a nearby biome. The fungus was especially dangerous, as it infested a number of undead creatures, giving it a way of protecting itself. The group that delved into the biome proved not only the dangers that the fungus-infected creatures posed, but also the mettle of the Galoglik, as they persevered through the musty, spore-ridden depths and pushed beyond, into the lair of the creature known as the Rot Mother. Though it spread disease amongst the Galoglik, they managed to fell it, retrieving both sufficient samples of the fungus for the academic and proof of the Rot Mother's demise. A short while later, the Galoglik had returned to camp, celebrating their hard-fought victory. The still air of the night above ground was rent asunder, even as the ground split apart and the roiling mass of the Slua King rose into camp. The vile conglomeration grasped and pulled at the Gologlig massed around, the manifold voices calling out for the Gologlig to join them, most especially for the one who had escaped them before. This time, however, the Gologlig were able to tear the creature asunder, killing the constituent Slua until only a pulsating heart remained, serving as fine proof of the defeat of the creature. The third day of the mission to Crag Uskian began with several pieces of positive news. The support the band had given to Rider Cuivine Thunderbrand of Maeldov had proved decisive, and they were due to receive the promised rewards in turn. However, even more welcoming was the news of the final 2 targets from the bounty list they had been given. Firstly, a local hunter discovered a pack of Kavru Kailok with an albino-faced creature amongst their number. And secondly, a weeping had been discovered who claimed to have escaped from the lair of a linebreaker Vartuk who had been experimenting on others of their kind. With this news, the camp was abuzz with plans on how to see out the tasks before them. The first task to be addressed was the mischievous and flighty Kavru Kailok. With the aid of the guidance they had received, the group of beasts was quickly tracked by the members of Cuach Noreg and brought down. Even the cunning of Bon, the pale-faced Kavru Kailok, was not enough to help them avoid their fate. Although the beasts were slain, the artifacts they were said to have stolen were not recovered. Next, the scholars amongst the band who had been eagerly deciphering the mysteries of the tomb of the Mad King managed to open the tomb, and it is said that many treasures were recovered from within its confines. However, the task that posed the greatest challenge to the seasoned Gologlig was their expedition into the laboratory of the elusive Physic. Faced by seemingly unending waves of chemically imbued experiments, they eventually managed to confront the Linebreaker. Though the Physic attempted to escape, the band showed them no quarter and struck them down, retrieving whatever other survivors they could from within the immoral laboratory. It is rumoured that the Physic survived long enough to be brought back to camp before being interrogated and killed, their head being presented as proof of their demise. Despite the great successes of the morning, there were puzzling accounts of the death of one of the members of the band. Smeagol Buttonwood, a beloved member of the band, met their end once the band had fought clear of the physics laboratory. There were scattered accounts that the band were assailed by a formless, wordless creature made of moss, vines and leaves that attacked them ferociously. One can only assume that it was a fearsome threat, as Smeagol was a long-standing member of Cuach Noreg, a Baelish human who was a veteran of the Battle of Scarlet Heather, having fought alongside the Raig before they took that title. None could argue that Cuach Noreg performed admirably during their visit to Crag Uskian, bringing in all the bounties that were presented to them and uncovering secrets besides. For such a successful band, it was likely no surprise that the next task that was before them was a mission issued by the Raig themselves. They were to travel to the far archipelago of the Shaper's Steppes, off the coast of Shivul, to investigate the fate of the last Raig, find out the current situation of the island, and open diplomatic channels with them. What would await Cuach Noreg there could not be guessed, the islands having been inaccessible from the mainland for many years by storms and heightened Gwict activity. Further, the Shaper's Steppes have long been a mystery to the people of Tirneach, fabled to be the last remaining remnant of the first Raig's march across the sea to Tirneach. The reclusive islanders have long been removed from the people of Tirneach, the current state of the island shrouded further by the death of the last Raig, Melogne y Conquivir, on an official visit to the Shaper's Steppes. Whether the venture undertaken by Cuach Noreg into the unknown would fare better than the last official trip remained to be seen.